I'm pleased to say that Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, spokesperson for the Israeli Defence Force, can join me now. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Lieutenant Colonel.
Good afternoon, Sangita.
The conclusion of the IDF interim conclusion of the IDF inquiry into the killing of 7 international aid workers has concluded that they died as the result of a grave mistake. Would you like to take this moment to apologise to the families of those 7 aid workers?
Absolutely. It's a devastating tragedy for the families and for the organisation, the World Central Kitchen. We need to be able to conduct and facilitate the humanitarian effort that is ongoing. This shouldn't have happened, and it should have been prevented. Indeed, the IDF swiftly investigated with the assistance, I would say, with 2 different investigations that worked in parallel. The first, an investigation on operational level investigation, which came to some conclusions, but also an independent of the chain of command investigation from reserved officers that are not dependent on promotion and have a very clear freedom of operations within the investigative process. And they came to very clear conclusions that there was both an incorrect identification, decision-making errors, and non-compliance with the standard operating procedures of the IDF.
Understood.
And that's precisely why 2 of the officers, the major, who's the fire support officer, and the chief of staff of the brigade, were dismissed from their roles. And that's why 3 other officers of the ranks of colonel, brigadier general, and major general all received reprimands for their roles in this tragedy.
This, of course, wasn't an isolated incident. There have been at least 196 other aid workers that have been killed by the IDF. Would you like to also offer their families your apologies?
I think we need to be very cautious around numbers being distributed. At least some of those so-called aid workers were employees of UNRWA aid organization, were involved specifically on the 7th of October attack.
That's so according to you, but you have just admitted that some of them, in your view, may have been cooperating with Hamas. What about the others? Would you like to take this opportunity, Colonel Lerner, to apologise to them?
I'd like to take the opportunity to say that this is a war that Israel did not ask for, and a war that we are fighting in the most difficult conditions. Indeed, there are, like in every war, since the dawn of war, civilians are caught up in it. We need to do everything we can to limit that influence. That is what we're trying to do.
But when people make mistakes, they apologise. So why don't you apologise for the deaths of the other aid workers that have been killed by the IDF?
I don't want to elaborate on other incidents that we've not investigated and I don't have answers for.
So when will you be investigating them?
Sangita, the fact that you're pressing doesn't help. The reality is we've revealed the situation regarding the WCK incident, this tragedy.
But you did that under international pressure. My question to you is, if the 7 aid workers that were international aid workers were killed as the result of a mistake, and you accept that there are other aid workers, although you dispute the number, that there are other aid workers who are also being killed as a result of IDF actions, it is a perfectly reasonable question to ask you when it is you're going to investigate those deaths.
No, I'd honestly say I don't know the answer to that question. I think we should try and realize that there is an ongoing war and we are continuing our effort to defeat Hamas in very challenging circumstances. And indeed, there are tragedies that are happening throughout this war. Just last night, the IDF conducted an operation in the area of Khan Yunis, and we brought home the body of Elad Katsir, who was abducted to Gaza by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist organization. In the overnight operation, he was brought home dead. We found him. They had buried him in the ground in a special operation that was conducted overnight. We brought him back and identified him, and he will be buried by his family in near Oz, where he was abducted from after his father had been killed and his mother was abducted as well.
There is no doubt that that is a tragedy. There is no doubt that they should not have been killed by Hamas. There is no doubt that they should have been released earlier. But with regard to that, would you like to react to a statement made by Elad's sister, Karmet, who says that the IDF will announce the quote, brave rescue operation, but will not tell you that the Prime Minister, the Cabinet and the IDF have no idea where most of the kidnapped, the alive and murdered are. She goes on to say they won't tell you either that they have no way to protect the kidnapped, even when they know where they are. She added, saying that her brother, quote, could have been saved if a deal would have happened on time. What's your reaction to that statement from Elad's sister?
So clearly a bereaved sister, our heart weeps and aches for her and her family and the remaining 133 families of 133 Israelis that are being held by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip.
Colonel, she's just accused the IDF and the Israeli government of lying. What is your reaction to that?
Of course, the IDF, as we proved last night, will go to extensive efforts in order to bring home Israelis, even if they have been murdered by their captors.
She is accusing you, the IDF, and the Israeli government of lying to the Israeli people and the families of hostages. Would you like to address that specific accusation?
The IDF specifically will continue to utilize all of the tools at hand in order to bring home hostages, release them as we have done in Rafah last month when we brought home 2 alive. When we can, we create the operational reality and opportunity to bring home hostages. We will go to every effort in order to bring them home.
I appreciate your answer. That's not an answer to the question, however. World Central Kitchen have asked for an independent investigation into the deaths of their 7 aid workers. Will the IDF agree to work with an independent investigation?
The IDF has conducted a very extensive and swift investigation into this incident.
Yes, and you explained in great detail what that investigation was. Would you just answer the question I've asked you? World Central Kitchen have asked very specifically for an independent, internationally monitored investigation into what happened. Will the IDF and the Israeli government cooperate, yes or no?
I'm confident in our ability to reveal the truth as we did and hold the people that are responsible accountable. We are sharing our findings with the World Central Kitchen. We shared the preliminary findings, and I expect that we will show more to the organization.
Can you see why there are concerns about the independence of the investigation conducted by the IDF? Do you understand why organizations like World Central Kitchen, other humanitarian organizations, have said that they want an independent investigation because until there is one, until they can understand what some of them are calling systematic, indiscriminate killing of aid workers, until that point they are not willing to send more aid into Gaza, and we know that starvation has now taken hold in parts of Gaza. Can you accept the significance of that? The impact on the Gazans, the impact on potentially the hostages. And can you accept that that is why an independent, internationally monitored investigation is one that should be entered into alongside the IDF and the Israeli government?
No, I don't agree that that's the situation at all. Our investigation was thorough, it was swift, and it was conclusive in its outcome. We've shared that. We'll continue to share it and speak to our allies and to the governments that have been affected. Their citizens have been affected by it. We've engaged and we'll continue to do so.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Sangita Myska. This is LBC.